What's up, guys? It's Social Ham here, and today we're going to be talking about abortion laws and some abortion cases that have been happening and occurring across the country. Abortions are under attack. Women's rights are under attack from conservatives, of course. Who else would it be under attack? So the biggest news, this is about a week old already, but this happened, I believe, on last Monday. The biggest news that came out was that the Supreme Court was going to review a Mississippi abortion law that people want to overturn Roe v. Wade. So essentially, we have Roe v. Wade, which guaranteed women's rights to have an abortion, and then we had Planned Parenthood versus Casey, I believe, which essentially determined that to have an abortion, if the baby is not viable outside of the womb, then you can have an abortion. Once the baby or the fetus is, it can live outside of the womb, then you can't have an abortion. So it pretty much guarantees first trimester abortions, which is the first 3 months of pregnancy, and then a little bit over that. But that's the general rule. And so what a lot of conservatives do, what a lot of pro-life advocates like to do, is get states to pass super restrictive abortion laws in hopes that eventually it would get to the Supreme Court, and then the Supreme Court might have some chance of overturning the court case, overturning Roe v. Wade, which would then allow all states to pass any sort of abortion restriction they want. And so this is the first time we're going to be getting a really, I think in my lifetime at least, a huge abortion case that the Supreme Court's going to hear. And you have to remember, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, she passed away, and she was a huge pro-life advocate. I believe there was another judge that is now no longer there, that retired. And so there's a 6 free majority on the Supreme Court. So there is a fear that perhaps they might actually overturn Roe v. Wade, which would be obviously horrible for people who are for abortions, for women. It would be just an awful thing for the country. And so the Mississippi case in question, the Mississippi law, I should say, essentially banned almost all abortions after 15 weeks of pregnancy, with only exceptions for medical emergencies or fetal abnormalities. So even if you were raped, even if it was incest, you can't get an abortion. In Mississippi, this Mississippi law that passed. The law itself is not in effect, by the way. It's been struck down by lower courts, but they've appealed to state, and they are now hoping for it to get to the Supreme Court, which the Supreme Court is going to look at. So let's say the Supreme Court looks at the Mississippi law and they decide, you know what, we agree with Mississippi and we're going to overturn Roe v. Wade, then the Mississippi law could then go into effect, and then other states with similar abortion laws could also go into effect. So that's why that's really crucial that the Supreme Court's going to listen to it, because most of the times, either they listen to it and they side with Roe v. Wade, or they just dismiss it, which in that case the law is dead. And so, a little bit after we got this news that this Mississippi law was going to be heard by the Supreme Court, we got this one, that the governor of Texas signed, Greg Abbott. He signed a law that bans abortions as early as 6 weeks. Many women don't even know they're pregnant by the 6th week. So imagine you don't know you're pregnant, and then you start puking a little bit, you feel a little sick, you go to the doctor, and they're like, oh, you're 7 weeks pregnant. And, I don't know, you can't afford the baby, maybe you were, something happened, and now, you can't even get an abortion in Texas. Again, the law, I believe, is not in effect. It goes into effect in September. And no lower court, I think, in Texas has overturned it, so it could go into effect in September. But essentially, it prohibits any abortion after around 6 weeks of pregnancy, which again, before many women are even aware they are pregnant. The bill, which takes effect in September, also makes no exceptions for pregnancies that are a result of rape or incest again. However, it has this provision that individual citizens can sue anyone they believe may have been involved in helping a pregnant individual violate the ban. So essentially, let's say you live in Texas, it's September, this law is in effect, and you need to get an abortion. So let's say you go cross state to Oklahoma, I guess. I don't know Oklahoma's abortion law, it's just a hypothetical. Let's say you go to Oklahoma and to get an abortion, and let's say your mother takes you there, right? And then you get back, and someone in the neighborhood finds out, so they can sue you for getting the abortion, the female who got the abortion, and then they can sue your mother for helping you cross state lines to get an abortion. I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, first of all, so you won't even make an exception for rape or incest, which is the bare minimum, by the way, but you can let people sue if they know someone helped someone get an abortion. It's completely ridiculous. It's so backwards and just totally fucked that this was even being a bill and that it passed. I mean, you gotta leave it to Texas to pass this shit. And the provision can so okay. Um, there was also a thing I believe that if a doctor does give an abortion, they would also be fined. I think up to 100,000 around there. Um, so it's super just fucked that this is happening. And then something that I actually didn't hear about that much that fell a little bit under the radar is that the Texas Senate passed a trigger law. So for those of you who aren't aware what a trigger law is, a trigger law is essentially you pass this law that isn't in effect, but if an event happens, then the law goes into effect. So the trigger law that the Texas Senate passed, that I believe the Texas House has yet to vote on, but the Texas House will probably vote yes, and then it's up to the governor if he wants to sign the bill, essentially would ban all abortions. Like, no matter what. There's no, like, 6 weeks. No, it would just outlaw all abortions. So, House Bill 1280 would take effect 30 days after the Supreme Court overturned the Roe decision, essentially. So, like, let's say the Mississippi law goes, the Mississippi law that the Supreme Court's overviewing, let's say the Supreme Court says, you know what, we are going to overturn Roe v Wade. Then, this trigger law that Texas passed, 30 days after they decided that, all abortions in the state of Texas would be prohibited. There's no provisions for rape. There's no provisions if it's incest. I believe there's not even for like fetal abnormalities. Here you go. Yeah, you could face life in prison or $100,000 in fines if they perform abortions. The bill does not make any exceptions for women at risk of suicide or self-harm, pregnant as a result of rape or incest, or in the case of severe or potentially lethal fetal abnormalities. So you could literally be having a child that the doctors are like, listen, the chances of your child living once it's born are less than like 1%. And the state of Texas would say, you don't have the option to abort that baby. You're going to have that baby. So imagine going through that as a mother. You give birth to a baby that's probably going to die, and then it dies, and there's nothing you could have done. You know, putting a baby to suffer through that crap. So, this is super insane. Other states, I think like 9 other states have passed similar trigger laws. So if Roe v. Wade is overturned, they would go into effect. So abortion is under attack, people. Women's rights are under attack in this country. And we've seen it more because Donald Trump, as we know, he got free conservative justices into the Supreme Court. Amy Coney Barrett has been advocating, she's pro-life. And I believe Justice Kavanaugh has before gone on pro-life stances. So there is a good chance that Roe v. Wade could possibly be overturned, which, if that does happen, would be devastating to women's rights and just bodily autonomy in general. And so, you know, there is the portion of women's rights, you know, like they are carrying the baby. That is an important conversation about abortion. But something else I want to bring up that I think people kind of don't think about that much is that there's also this concept of bodily autonomy. So the concept of bodily autonomy is essentially like, hey, you have control over your body. You know, like that's why, like, if I want to get a tattoo, once I'm an adult, I can go get a tattoo. If I want to, you know, do crack, I can do crack if I want to, right? Like there are certain things that there's like a concept of bodily autonomy. And so, you know, there's like no one can control what you do with your body, but like if we allow these bills to pass, abortion, where the state is coming in saying, "Hey, we don't want you to do this," then where does it stop? How much power are we going to give to the state? Like let's say you're in a coma, like you're in a hospital, you're in a coma, and somebody needs a kidney, right? Can the state now say, well, this person's in a coma, we don't know if they're going to wake up, so we're going to operate them while they're in their coma and take their kidney and give it to the other person? Or what if, let's say the population is getting low, we need more people to have babies. Can the state now come in and pick a random group of women and say, okay, we're going to artificially inseminate you and now you have to have children? Like, where does that stop once the government, you give them power to interfere with your body? And the other thing is illegal abortions is that abortion laws don't stop abortions, all right? It's just like having laws against marijuana. It's like having abstinence be passed. None of these things help. If you just make abortions illegal, women are still going to get abortions, and they're going to get unsafe abortions that put them at risk of dying, and they're going to just they're still going to get abortions. There's no way to end abortions. Abstinence, we know, doesn't work. people are still gonna have sex, and if you do abstinence, you actually get more people pregnant because now they don't know what safe sex is. Um, Criminalizing, like non-violent drug offenders doesn't work. They're still gonna go out and do drugs, and now you're ruining people's lives because they smoked marijuana. So banning abortions isn't gonna help. It's just going to hurt more. So that's all I have to say on that matter. Where we'll see eventually. I believe the Supreme Court starts hearing cases in October, so sometime around there we might see what they rule in Mississippi. But it's definitely something. If you care about abortion or women's rights or bodily autonomy, something you should definitely look towards to. So yeah, that's about it. So I'll see you.